Hello everyone, welcomes to Annie's with TV. Our story starts off with a man walking to the temple. He is warned that he shouldn't betray the Buddha and turn to the demons. The man says Buddha does not exist. The monk runs and earns an early afterlife. While passing, he thanks the man for ending him before he can doubt Buddha. The man prays to the demons. He tells them that if they protect his land they can take anything they want away from him. Then lightning strikes the temple. A woman gives birth to a little one when lightning suddenly strikes him. The man goes inside and is told he has a son. He praises the woman, then looks at the boy. He sees an interesting view. The mother says she loves it. The father begins to laugh, saying the demons accepted his offer. He tells her not to worry about this one and gives it to an old lady. The mother begs for her offspring, but he tells her that he will give her another. The man finds a headless statue on the ground and is told it was a sacrifice. The old woman goes to the river. She gets ready to see if the little one can breathe underwater. She realizes that he wants to live and puts him in a boat instead. A demon then eats the old lady. An old man smells the demon and is attacked, but he slices the monster in half. He senses the little one and says it smells cursed, then walks away. The boat is found by a man by the river. He sees the little one in the boat and realizes that it wants to live. Few years pass and the boy, Hyakkimaru, runs around on prosthetics and gets beaten by a crab. He is attacked by a monster, but he knows how to dodge. The man throws an axe at the demon, scaring it away. The man teaches Hyakkimaru how to use a sword. He trains for years until he can defeat demons without any problems. Hyakkimaru is pulled in by a demon who then deep throats a sword. He begins to have a seizure and his leg grows out. The man builds prosthetics for Hyakkimaru. He says that if he slays demons who have taken part of him, he will get back what he has lost. He tells Hyakkimaru that he can't come with him, then hugs him and sends him off on his journey. A boy, Dororo, sits and sells goods to people. 4 men come to him, pause, and say he is selling the stuff he took from them. They try to punish him, but he throws a pot in their face and runs away. They follow him into an alleyway where Dororo throws dung balls at them. He washes his hands off in a river. A dog comes to him, but he refuses to give it food, wanting it to hunt for itself. The men confront Dororo and begins to jump him. Dororo throws a rock, hitting one in the face, and he brings Dororo to check if he's thirsty. They see Hyakkimaru staring at the river. A demon comes up from the water and attacks the big man, then his 2 friends. The monster goes after Dororo, but Hyakkimaru draws his arm, revealing a blade, and saves him. Hyakkimaru dodges the monster on the bridge until it collapses with them, crushing the monster. He picks up his sword with his sword hands. Dororo puts on back his hands and asks him how he fights if he is deaf and blind. Hyakkimaru starts having a seizure and his mask falls off, revealing flesh that skin begins forming over. Dororo asks if he's human, but Hyakkimaru is mute as well. While walking, Dororo continues to question the deaf man. Hyakkimaru walks over and begins picking berries, then goes spearfishing. He's about to eat it raw when Dororo stops him and cooks the fish. It's revealed that even though Hyakkimaru is blind, he can still see people's souls and whether they are good or evil. In the morning, Dororo tells Hyakkimaru that he found a mission for him and drags him towards a village to slay a monster. The vice leader tells them to sleep at his house and wait for the monster. In the night, a monster walks through the house, but Hyakkimaru doesn't attack and allows him to escape. In the morning, they are brought to the head of the village. She greets them, but Hyakkimaru draws his sword to poke her. Dororo holds him back, getting the attention of the other villagers. They throw them in a storehouse where they meet an old man. He says he came to slay the monster but was thrown here in the night. The man says he and Hyakkimaru see the world the same. The light goes out and Hyakkimaru jumps in a well, cutting a demon. He heads towards the head of the village home and she transforms into a demon god. They begin to fight. Hyakkimaru begins to move like Jagger, then blind the monster. The vice leader throws a net over Hyakkimaru and the monster escapes. He chases after her and continues the fight in the bamboo forest. She pins him to the floor but gets distracted by the other demon. Hyakkimaru jumps into the sky and pokes the monster in the skull. She says she's surprised that he's alive, and he replied by poking her other skull. The first monster rings his bell and they find a huge amount of money. The vice leader says that because their village can't grow crops, they take what is left behind from the people the demon god eats. He says this monster is a pilgrim they fed to her and he torments him with a dinger. Dororo apologizes for holding back Hyakkimaru. He grabs Dororo's face and then writes his name on the floor. Hyakkimaru then has a seizure as his sense of touch is returned to him. He feels the heat of the flame and steps into a fire. Dororo pushes him out and he falls to the floor holding his burned leg. In the morning, Hyakkimaru stands outside enjoying the rain. Dororo sees a woman praying. He asks what she is praying for. She says she prays for her brother who has been missing in war for 5 years. He tells her is probably. A man suddenly falls over. Hyakkimaru sees a demon and rushes over to it. He finds a massacre and takes off his arms. He begins fighting with a man. Dororo asks why he did this. He says the blade is cursed and he must catch bodies in order to appease it. They return to violence, clashing blades many times. He slashes Hyakkimaru's face and lead him to the edge of a cliff. He thrusts at Hyakkimaru but he blocks it with his fake leg, then throws him off a cliff. Dororo comes and realizes that his leg fell off the cliff and goes for it. He finds his leg with the sword in it. He grabs the sword, then gets controlled. Dororo slices at people and scares them away. He tries to fight the sword but it puts him under a genjutsu, then leads him. Hyakkimaru watches him from afar and follows him to a village. Everyone hides as Dororo walks through the street. He is then confronted by Hyakkimaru and starts to run away. He slices at Dororo but he dodges. They begin clashing blades until he disarms Dororo. He thanks Hyakkimaru when the original user comes and reclaims his blade. He begins fighting with Hyakkimaru and they do a cool pose in the rain. He slices at Hyakkimaru but he blocks it with his arms and cuts through the blade and the man. His sister comes crying over her fallen brother while Hyakkimaru has a seizure. He grows back his ears and begins to hear. Later, Hyakkimaru lies down suffering from sensory overload. Dororo wraps a cloth around his head to make it easier. A bird demon attacks. It knocks Hyakkimaru around and grabs him off the ground. He slices at the bird then falls down. It gets ready to finish them off but the old man comes in and saves them. Dororo tells him that he has gotten weaker since his hearing came back and couldn't defeat the demon. Dororo is told that a war is about to break out and shouts, making Hyakkimaru shiver in pain. The old man grabs him and forces him to hear and Dororo stops and scolds him. He wakes up in the morning following the sound of someone singing. He finds a woman washing herself in the river. He goes towards her. Dororo and the old man chase after him. Hyakkimaru lies down injured from his fight. The woman says he can stay until he is healed. She then introduces them to the rest of the children orphaned by the war. One of the kids tells her to go rest since she's going to be working later. The monk says he will look for a path so they can leave. Dororo helps clean the floor but he trips and falls. The woman says she will bring back medicine for Hyakkimaru and heads off to work. Later on, she comes back and carries medicine. She wonders if he can see and Dororo tells her he sees the soul. Hyakkimaru asks her to sing and she does, bringing him peace. The monk returns telling them he found a new place for everyone to go live that is fertile, but a demon god have already claimed the land. Hyakkimaru goes off to slay the demon. Dororo tells him not to go while injured. The old man follows after him and Dororo says to stay safe. The woman tells them since they are going to move to a new location soon, she will work extra hours for both camps in order to earn more. The other kid says this makes him nervous but Dororo tells him he will follow her and keep her safe. Dororo follows the woman to work and sees her getting clapped by soldiers while singing. Hyakkimaru and the old man challenge the demon god to a fight. It creates sand pits and pulls them to the bottom. Hyakkimaru stabs him in the eye but gets his good leg bitten off. He falls to the floor holding his stub while crying. While on his way back, Dororo finds the old man carrying Hyakkimaru on his shoulder. The old man says despite losing his leg he did get his voice back. He lies down unconscious. The woman runs in and finds Hyakkimaru. She starts treating his injuries. Seeing her new bruises, Dororo runs away outside. Dororo asks the kid if he ever went to work with a woman. He says no and says they have a dream to one day own a huge rice field so they won't ever go hungry. The woman passes Dororo while going to work. She asks him if he knows what she does. He confesses and she says it's okay because it puts food on the table. He says that was the only job his mom never did and she passed. He tells her to take back from war and get a big rice field for all the kids, then runs upstairs. In the morning, Hyakkimaru practices on his new leg. The kids show him a stash of swords and he takes a liking to one. In the night, Dororo realizes Hyakkimaru is missing and runs after him. Hyakkimaru fights the demon god alone. It bites through his new leg but he reveals a sword is attached to it. He stabs it in the mouth and then cuts off its thick cap. Dororo and Hyakkimaru walk back seeing the temple the kids are burning. They arrive as the last little one fall. The soldiers say the woman was seen going to the enemy camp and was slayed under suspicion of being spies. Dororo runs to them and gets picked up and thrown to the floor. He tries to poke Dororo but Hyakkimaru disarms him. The woman passes and Hyakkimaru begins to scream. Choosing violence, he begins poking the soldiers. He gives all of them a tickling straight from the gates of hell and takes off the thinker of one. Dororo, seeing him turning into a monster, stops him from finishing the soldier. Hyakkimaru hugs Dororo and calls the woman's name. They bury them, then continue on their journey together. While walking, they hear a man enjoying himself. They look up and see Lower Moon 5. Hyakkimaru cuts the man down, then fights the demon. He injures it but webs him to a tree and it escapes. Dororo frees him, then they head towards a village. They find out that people have been going away to the village each night and suspects that it may be because of the spider creature. They see a sign in the village offering a reward for anyone who can find the kidnapper and tells a man to stay away because the kidnapper is a monster. Dororo is confused because they walked all night looking for the monster and couldn't find it, but someone else still went missing from the village. He begins to question if the kidnapper is the monster. They decide to look for the kidnapper once more. Hyakkimaru finds the monster together with a man. They warn him about her. He protects her, saying he's the kidnapper, and helps people leave the village so they can go live a better life. The guards then appear. Dororo asks for the reward, but they tell him the reward is fake and made to entice snitches. They attack them but get webbed up. She gives them head and take away some of their life. She then shoots sticky fluid on Hyakkimaru and they run away with him chasing close behind. They find the demon webbing up the guards and sucking their soul. Hyakkimaru disarms her, then get ready to finish her off. She says she must get the man to a doctor, and he begs her not to run. Hearing this, Hyakkimaru let them go. Dororo walks along the road and a spider falls on his face. He freaks out at first, then puts the spider on the leaf. Seeing this, Hyakkimaru chuckles. Realizing this, Dororo complains that he is being laughed at. Dororo tries to make Hyakkimaru talk when they see a woman dressed in all white heading towards a mountain. A boy slides down the mountain with a bow, then fires at them. Dororo questions him and he tells him she is being carried off to be eaten by a demon god that is hidden in clouds. Dororo tells him that they will help him in exchange for gold and they agree. They knock out the two people guarding the woman. The boy heads to rescue the girl, but she says she must stay in order to save the village. Dororo says they will help her when a black cloud starts forming around them. The guards are pulled into the air and fall back down with bite marks. The monster goes after the boy, but the woman pushes him out the way, sacrificing herself instead. Dororo tells Hyakkimaru to attack, but the cloud makes it so he's actually blind and can't see where the monster is. A hot spring goes off, blasting a hole through the cloud. Sunlight touches the monster and begins to burn it, scaring it away and allowing them to escape. They go back to the boy's home and they plan to defeat the demon god together. Dororo pretends to be a sacrifice. When the monster appears, he begins to run away. The demon bites at him but misses. Dororo taunts the monster while running. He trips and is attacked, but he hides in a hole. The boy launches a fire arrow at the monster, causing an explosion. The monster puts out the fire, then releases more clouds. Hyakkimaru shoots arrows at the demon to hear where it is, then jumps up and takes one of his eyes. The monster gets up and hits him to the floor. Dororo jumps on the demon's head and begins shouting. Hearing this, Hyakkimaru takes the other eye of the monster but is eaten by its other head. Hyakkimaru slices the monster in half from the inside and the monster disintegrates in the sunlight. They fall into a river. Hyakkimaru begins having a seizure and gains a sense of smell. The woman thanks them for saving her life and says she and the boy are going back to the village. Hyakkimaru goes around smelling everything. Dororo complains and he picks him up and smells him. Dororo pushes Hyakkimaru away, then passes out. Hyakkimaru carries him on his back and asks a villager for a doctor. At the doctor's, Dororo says he hates spider lilies because it reminds him of his parents. He explains that his parents were a part of a band that went around hunting samurais because they behave like a-holes most of the time. They were very successful, but one day his father was betrayed by one of his men. They fill his father's legs with arrows, turning him into a disabled person. They cross a battlefield and check loot boxes for resources. They come across samurais burning down a village. The father wants to attack, but the mother convinced him not to. One of the samurais recognizes him and tries to avenge his friends, only to be reunited with them. He throws a sword, disabling two people, then slays the others. One of the men stabs a spear through his back, but before he went on, he gave the samurai back his spear. Dororo runs over and cried at his father's passing. His mother is told that there are samurais giving out food. They join the line and see the traitor among the samurai. He goes over and greets them. Dororo wants to stone him, but his mother tells him not to. They announce that food is almost finished and his mother forces her way to the front. They ask her for a bowl, but she doesn't have one. She takes the boiling hot food in her hands, then goes over and feeds Dororo. They walk through a field of spider lilies, where his mom suddenly collapses. She tells him that the war will end someday and he should never give up. He shakes her and begs her to get up, but she is unmoving. The doctor tells Hyakkimaru that Dororo has had a hard life and reveals that he is actually a girl. They walk down the street. Dororo, now feeling better, asks Hyakkimaru if he saw anything while his clothes were getting washed, but he doesn't answer. Later on, Hyakkimaru runs through the forest slaying a demon. They go to a river and take a bath. Dororo says that there is a village nearby that's filled with food and resources. Hyakkimaru sees men fighting a giant crab monster and slays it. The man thanks him for his help in protecting his village. Dororo tells the man Hyakkimaru is blind. They are surprised by this, seeing that he slew the monster. Dororo asks for a rescue fee and is then pointed towards the capital of the land. A woman sees Hyakkimaru and screams the demon child has come. Dororo drags him to watch a play. In the play the Lord fights a demon and slays him. They look over and see the old man. They tell him what happened to the orphans, then ask why he is there. He tells them the Lord of the land slayed many demons and put them in a shrine, but he wants to see them for himself. The old man tells them to be careful and walks away. Hyakkimaru stands and listens to a story about a fort that drove the enemy away. They say the goddess of mercy dwells within the walls, but as of late, the enemy has been nailing captured soldiers to the wall, which draws monsters to it every night. Dororo asks him about the wall and Hyakkimaru says this demon god is very strong. A boy comes and tells them not to pass the wall, and shows them soldiers hiding in the bush. He tells them a village used to be there but no longer since it was burned down. The boy says one day he will cross over and return to his family. Dororo tells him they will help him cross over. In the night, the enemy goes away, many demons begin to appear on the battlefield, Hyakkimaru slays them but more appears. They begin gathering around him and attack. Dororo throws rocks slaying some. While they're fighting the demon, the boy sees his chance and runs away. A monster attacks Dororo but he is saved by Hyakkimaru. Dororo chases after the boy while the demons fuse into one and prepare to attack Hyakkimaru. It pins him to the floor and spit in his face. Hyakkimaru kicks it off him and it runs away. The Lord of the land arrives and points arrows at Hyakkimaru. He asks the Lord what he is. The Lord calls him a demon child, then commands his soldiers to unalive him. Hyakkimaru runs away and climbs a tree, wondering why the Lord said that. Dororo is captured by the enemy soldier and thrown inside a jail cell. The boy tells Dororo that the soldiers said his village was entirely massacred and he begins to cry. Dororo sees a hole in the ceiling and declares he's gonna escape. Hyakkimaru stands in front of the Lord and his family. They call the guards. The Lord's wife calls Hyakkimaru her son. They fire at him and he runs away, escaping. The Lord tells them to go and end him. He sits in the forest when Dororo appears and tells him that the boy has been captured. They arrive at the wall and see a war being fought. The fire demon begins attacking. Hyakkimaru stands in front of the army and recognizes the voice of one of the men who slayed the orphans. He goes berserk but Dororo calms him down. Hyakkimaru's brother appears and tells them in order to protect the kingdom he must be a sacrifice. He challenges Hyakkimaru to a fight and charges at him. They begin clashing blades while the Lord watches. Hyakkimaru cuts through the blade and eye of his brother, then rescues Dororo. Hyakkimaru's mother arrives on the battlefield. She apologizes to him for all his suffering but says she can't save him because without him the people would suffer. She says he will not be punished alone and takes out a knife and ends herself. The wall begins to fall and his father retreats. Dororo tells him to leave this place. The boy's family comes and he runs to them. Hyakkimaru and Dororo walk away from the battlefield shocked by what they've just seen. Dororo is told they are near a hot spring. He tells Hyakkimaru he wants to go but gets ignored. He then tells Hyakkimaru that there is a monster near the hot spring which gets his attention. They find a cabin and decide to spend the night there. Dororo tells Hyakkimaru he is going to gather firewood while he sleeps. While foraging he hears a water and goes to investigate. He finds a waterfall with a statue carved into it. He then meets a woman that looks like his mother. He drags the woman to Hyakkimaru and tells him to look at her. He asks if she's a demon and Hyakkimaru says he can't tell. She says that this cabin is her home and lights a fire. Dororo asks about the statue. She explains it was made by a sculptor who only know how to make kind faces. When he built that statue he wanted an evil face but he didn't know how to make it. The sculptor spends his whole life failing to make an evil face and passes from old age. The woman finished making the food. While eating, Dororo tells the woman she makes food like his mother. Hyakkimaru suddenly falls asleep. The lady covers him with a blanket and Dororo finishes the whole bowl. He thanks her for the food, then asks her if he can call her mom. The lady says it's okay and he hugs her. He begins to feel tired and the lady says the drug is finally working. Dororo asks her what's happening. The lady continues her story and says that after the sculpture passed full of regret, the statue was possessed by a demon and it revived the sculpture in order to get a face by cutting them off people. She says a little one's face can't fit the statue but Hyakkimaru's can. Dororo passes out. When he awakens he grabs a stick and follows after the woman. He sees her dragging Hyakkimaru away and rolls after him. The woman calls him a fool and says he should have just run away. Hyakkimaru wakes up and frees himself. He climbs the statue but gets blown away into the water below. In the water, he sees many divers, then swims to the top. He climbs up on the monster's rings and breaks its arms. The woman takes his mother's face and tries to trick him but it doesn't work since Hyakkimaru does not know what his mother looks like. She then wraps him with rope and prepares to take his face. Dororo hugs her and hits her with the good old talk no jutsu. Reminded of her humanity she cries and says she can't do it anymore. Hearing this the statue slices her. Hyakkimaru jumps on his face and it hits itself with its own sword. The woman embraces Dororo while she passes, her body turns to ash as he hugs her, leaving clothes. While walking, Dororo apologizes for always getting into trouble and being useless. Hyakkimaru tells him it's okay and decide to head to the hot spring. At the hot spring, they meet the old man who greets them. Some little ones come into the hot spring and see a map on Dororo's back. It revealed that Dororo's father gathered a huge amount of wealth and hid it away. He wants to tell his wife, but she refuses because of temptation. She tells the father to put it on her back so she won't see it and place the other half on Dororo. Before Dororo's mother passed, she told Dororo of the maps and tell him whenever he finds someone he can trust he can go there. The old man tells them they can find the money and help people or just spend the money on themselves. Dororo asks Hyakkimaru what he's going to do. He says slay demon gods and get his body back. Dororo asks what happens after that, but he keeps walking. A demon appears in front of them and asks them to take care of a big little one. Hyakkimaru says they are not evil and it falls on Dororo. They head towards a temple and decide to explore. The little one tells Dororo it needs to pee. He tells it to go pee by itself, but it chases him. Hyakkimaru finds the mother and she shows him an oil spill. The monster tells Dororo he's hungry and he freaks out thinking it's going to eat him. The monster disappears as a man approaches. He tells them it's dangerous at night because monsters come out and eat people. He invites them to his village and they follow him. Dororo asks if he's a demon god, but Hyakkimaru says no, but he is strange. The man shows them to his home. They go in to see many ladies playing instruments while they are treated to a feast. Dororo thanks them and he starts eating. He brings up the destroyed temple and all the musicians suddenly go away. The man tells them it was an orphanage that used little ones as workers who don't get paid, and beats them, but when they are old enough they escape by being sold. One day lightning struck the temple causing a fire, ending everyone in the building. Now the spirit of the nun wanders around catching bodies. In the night, they discuss the story. Dororo gets scared and comes closer to Hyakkimaru. A bug monster crawls above them and attacks. Hyakkimaru disarms him and it shoots sticky white liquid at him. It tries to run away, but Hyakkimaru pokes it, making it fall to the floor. It screams and a moth demon appears. It releases a powder and rescues the caterpillar, then flies away. Dororo decides to go wash off the powder. In the morning they are treated to food. Dororo thanks the man. He tells them that they have many rooms and they are free to stay. Hyakkimaru says the next time the demon god will not escape alive. Dororo says he will go check on what the villagers has to say about the orphanage. In the village Dororo sees many happy people. He is offered food by a little one. The old lady says their leader is the reason this village can stay in good condition. He asks about the orphanage, but the lady leaves saying she has work to do. Hyakkimaru follows the man into the forest. He leads him to a spot and tells him this is his favorite location. Dororo finds a storehouse and heads inside. He stabs one of the containers and rice falls out. He looks around and finds a trap door. He puts his head in the hole and gets kicked in. The man tells Hyakkimaru that the village is his everything and he can't allow him to slay the demon god because they are his people too. He says once his village was starving and stealing from one another. But one day he met a demon god who told him that if he allowed her to stay she would save his village. After she saved the people, the man took the woman into his home as his wife. The man tells Hyakkimaru that he will be a sacrifice for them. The demons appear and he walks away. The man reminds him of his family and he starts cutting up the demons. The man stands over to protect it, but Hyakkimaru kicks him down a hill. The monster picks him up, he slashes at it and falls to the ground. Inside the trapdoor, Dororo is chased by demons. He trips over the skull of former victims when the giant little one appears. The little one releases the spirits of other little ones who go to slay the demons. The little ones reveal that it was the villagers who slayed the nun and fed them to the monsters. They tell Dororo to follow them. The monsters begin burning the village to the ground. Hyakkimaru is woken up by Dororo. He tells Hyakkimaru what happened and they head to the lake. He rows the boat on the lake until the boss fight is triggered and the demon god appears. It picks him up, but he throws fire at the moth, defeating it. Hyakkimaru starts having a seizure and gets back his spine. They walk back to the village and see everything burnt, ended, or crying over all they have lost. Dororo wonder if they did the right thing. Hyakkimaru says he doesn't care what happens as long as he gets back his body. Dororo tells him he is becoming a demon. Later on, Hyakkimaru walks alone wondering where Dororo is. Dororo is found by the trader who asks him for his half of the map. He shows them his back and they find nothing. The trader says he is the only clue they have and take him with them. They camp out for the night. The trader tells Dororo that tomorrow he will tell them what's on the other half of the map. Dororo asks why he is doing this. He says he fell on hard times, so he found where his mother was and dug her up for her map. Dororo tries to attack him, but he's tied to a tree. In the morning, he tells Dororo that he must lead them the rest of the way and cut him free. They find an old village that was a battlefield. All the boats were destroyed. A one-armed man tells them he will take them across and the trader accepts. They enter the boat and sharks begin to pull it. Dororo looks at his arm and he says he fed it to the shark when they were starving, but the sharks got a taste for human flesh, so he had to continue feeding it to them. First he fed them the villager and now he feeds them whoever he can find. He whistles and the sharpedos begin to attack the men on the other boat. He goes on top of a shark and tells them not to overeat and save some for later. One of the men tries to paddle the boat but the shark attacks him. Dororo asks the trader what happened to the samurai job. He says the lord he served used him as a meat shield, so he left him. Dororo encourages him to live and he does the same to his men. Dororo says he has a plan and jumps into the water. He pulls on the rope and they pull him up with the shark chasing him. He comes out of the water standing on the shark. The samurai send it to shark heaven. They head to the shore and ambush the one-armed man. After they finish beating the cripple, the trader asks Dororo for the map. He says he's not ready for the money. They decide to give him a full body search and hold him up to the fire. The map appears, then they tie him on the tree. Dororo sees the one-armed man crying over his shark and commanding the other one to eat them all. Hyakkimaru unalive a demon. The man who raised him walks toward him and says he has become terrifying. He cleans Hyakkimaru while being surprised by all that he has gained. He tells the man he wants a new leg, but the man says after he has eaten. The man cools the food for Hyakkimaru, but he says he now feels heat so he can cool it himself. He tells the man that he was fed to the demon gods as a sacrifice and then tells him all that has happened to him since he has left. The man is shocked at his story. Hyakkimaru says he needs the leg. The man says that he cannot give it to him because if he slays the demon gods and take back his body, the country will be destroyed. Hyakkimaru pleads with him, but the man takes a knife to the leg and say he can't save him. A landslide happens, trapping both of them inside the cave. Hyakkimaru digs his way out. The man asks him why he fights. Hyakkimaru says all he want to do is take back what was stolen from him. The man says that even though Hyakkimaru is not wrong for wanting his body, he will have to slay not only the demons but his entire family and all the people of this region in the process. Then he will have his body but be all alone. Hyakkimaru tells him he has someone who will stay by his side and breaks through the cave. On the outside they find many demons. Hyakkimaru jumps into the mob and uses arm sword breathing first form. Hyakkimaru says people like the man are called mama. Hearing him say this, the man begins crying. He watches as Hyakkimaru continues along his journey. Hyakkimaru travels to the island where Dororo is and rows towards it. The shark comes on land and begins merging with the other shark. It begins to mega evolve and goes to attack Dororo. Hyakkimaru comes and saves him. The monster charges at them and grabs Hyakkimaru, but he pokes it in his eyes, then gives him brain surgery. Hyakkimaru touches Dororo's face, then put his head on his. He tells Dororo that he came to save him. Dororo begins to cry and hugs him. Hyakkimaru has a seizure and his leg grows back. The one-armed man scolds Hyakkimaru for killing his last friend just for a leg. Hyakkimaru looks towards the sea and sees his brother coming. He commands his soldier to end everyone on the island. Dororo hides from the soldier and finds the traitor. Dororo tells him they need to run, but he refuses to leave the treasure. Hyakkimaru came up with a plan. They set off an explosion to scare the troops away. While trying to escape, one of the men gets no-scoped. Hyakkimaru's brother challenges him to a fight. They charge at each other, but a big man comes between them. Hyakkimaru climbs up the cliff and clashes with his brother. The traitor takes Dororo and escapes with him while Hyakkimaru is getting jumped. He asks why his brother wants to be an only child. He says that him being alive makes the region suffer. He gets hit by an arrow, then is teamed on. Dororo and the traitor are ambushed by archers. He sees the location of the treasure and heads to it. He is shot with an arrow, then throws his blade at one of them. They prove that karma is a bitch and turn him into a pincushion. Dororo accidentally pushes all the statues off the mountains, defeating all the archers. Hyakkimaru fights the 3v1, getting beaten. He is kicked in the face by the big one, then clashes swords with his brother. Hyakkimaru declares that his brother is his enemy and they continue to fight. Dororo finds the traitor and he asks to see the treasure one last time. The one-armed man goes to the top of a mountain and set off an explosion which causes a landslide. The traitor protects Dororo, and Hyakkimaru escapes. Dororo wakes in a cave filled with money. The traitor sees it and reaches out and passes. Dororo prays for him and tells Hyakkimaru that he doesn't know how to use it. He takes some of the money, then leaves the island. Later on, Dororo goes to a mountain to slay a demon. They meet a man who tells them he is also hunting the monster because it ended his mother. They see the monster and attack it, but the man betrays them and attacks Hyakkimaru. He tells them that he likes feeding people to the monster because it makes him feel alive. The monster attacks them and they fall off the side of a cliff. Dororo realizes that his arm is stuck under a rock while the water slowly fills the area. Hyakkimaru tries pulling him but he fails. Water starts flowing harder and Hyakkimaru breaks his arm apart while trying to save him. He begins hitting his head on the rock while Hyakkimaru drinks water. The old man comes in and moves the rocks away. Hyakkimaru looks at his broken arm and decides to go slay the demon to get his real one. The monster jumps on him and gets sliced then retreats. The man slices at Hyakkimaru but gets easily defeated. He jumps in the air and gives the demon a hand. The man heads toward the monster and allows himself to become a power-up. The monster begins to evolve then flies at Hyakkimaru. Dororo walks through the battlefield seeing the monster parts everywhere. He sees Hyakkimaru slaying the demon god but realizes that he got nothing back. He goes berserk on the creature and Dororo stops him. Hyakkimaru walks off saying he will go to his father's region to get back what was stolen. They continue back on their journey. Dororo asks him what happens if he meets his family. Hyakkimaru says if he meets them he's going to end them. Dororo scolds him saying if he does that he will be alone. He tells Dororo that he will always be by his side. While walking they are told that a war is about to break out in the region. They walk past him but he tries to stop them. Hyakkimaru pulls his blade on him. Dororo asks why is he going so far for his body. Hyakkimaru says he wants to touch with his own hands and see with his own eyes because he is human too. Dororo sits confused about what he should do. While walking Hyakkimaru's brother shoots at him. Dororo holds on to Hyakkimaru and reminds him that he is his brother. He tells Dororo that he is not because he called him a demon. They begin to 1v3 him. They try to jump Hyakkimaru but he targets their archer first and disarms her. He then disarms their monk and tries to finish them off but his brother stops him. They start the 1v1 clashing blades many times. Hyakkimaru kicks him away and rushes at him. He slashes his brother in the face and gets ready to become an only child. An explosive arrow comes in interrupting their fight. They send a wild horse strapped with explosives at Hyakkimaru which explodes and once again sends him down a cliff. They capture Dororo in case Hyakkimaru survived then bring him away. At the bottom of the cliff, Hyakkimaru struggles to move when a demon suddenly possesses the horse causing it to evolve into a Rapidash. Hyakkimaru rages about Dororo when the horse walks toward him. Dororo tries to escape but he can't. Hyakkimaru's mother comes to Dororo and releases him. She asks about Hyakkimaru but Dororo scolds her for what she said to her son on the battlefield. The guards approach and she hides Dororo in her clothes until they pass. She shows him a secret passage. She tells Dororo that she had to abandon Hyakkimaru in order to save the region. Dororo leaves but she follows behind him. Hyakkimaru leads his Pokemon to a village and it uses tackle on the guards. Hyakkimaru's mother says that she just wants to see him one more time even if it means that he will end her. The river begins to move faster and Dororo falls off the boat into the water. Dororo wakes up beside the old man. He asks if a lady was found with him. He sees her helping all the sick people in the village. The villagers tell Dororo that all the people are refugees from the war efforts. He goes to Hyakkimaru's mother and tells her that because of the war they are trapped in the village. He says that if Hyakkimaru continues on his path he will turn into a demon god. Hyakkimaru rides his Rapidash while massacring the other trainers. He charges through the battlefield asking them to return Dororo. He uses flamethrower and continues his rampage. His brother confronts him after making a deal with a demon. Hyakkimaru runs at him seeing that they have his body parts. He says to give them back but they refuse. He commands his Pokemon to use Fire Spin. They tell him that they're going to defeat him and protect their land. Dororo arrives on the battlefield and sees the fight between them. The old man comes and tells them that the last demon god gave Hyakkimaru's brother his last remaining parts. The Rapidash prepares to stomp the monk but her little one comes and distracts her. The archer and the monk anger Peta. The horse bites the thinker of the monk then kicks the other. The horse walks towards her offspring and passes by its side. Hyakkimaru gains back his arms and screams in victory. He clangs blades with his brother. Hyakkimaru is confronted by Dororo and his mother but he runs away. Hyakkimaru asks why everyone is stopping him from reclaiming his body. His brother charges at him and they continue fighting. They clash blades many times until his brother begins to run away. Hyakkimaru chases him in order to regain his eyes. They tell Dororo that Hyakkimaru should give back his body to the demon gods. Dororo curses them but they say the life of one person is not worth an entire region. Dororo says that they must become stronger together and not rely on things being done for them. Hyakkimaru confronts his brother in a room. They have a vicious fight with fire all around them. They cling with each other many times, slightly injuring each other. His brother cuts him then tells him not to stain his floor. Hyakkimaru says that because he is older it is his floor. His brother says his mother suffered because of him and Hyakkimaru says it's our mother not just his. His brother attacks him and they fall to another level. Hyakkimaru breaks his brother's blade but decides to spare him. His brother says he was no match for him in the end and gives him back his eyes. A demon god comes from beneath the floor and attacks him, but he defeats it. Hyakkimaru gets back his eyes and begins to scream. His mother holds him and tells him to go to Dororo. He looks back and sees them deciding to stay in the burnt building as it collapses. Dororo and Hyakkimaru escape the castle together. He tells Dororo that the sky is pretty and she is beautiful as well. Hyakkimaru watches as the mountain crumbles. Dororo tells the refugees that they will build their own regions with his gold and he will get it in a few days. The old man praises him and asks how is Hyakkimaru. Hyakkimaru wanders to the demon temple and sees his father there sitting before them. His father asks him what he thinks of the land he has created. Hyakkimaru tells him it is ugly. His father tells him that he will sacrifice him again. Hyakkimaru goes towards his father with his sword in hand and strikes his father's helmet. He tells his father that he seeks peace and advises him not to become a demon then leave. His father realizes that if he didn't sacrifice Hyakkimaru and he succeeded him in becoming lord, the land would have been prosperous and begins to cry. Hyakkimaru goes on a new journey to find peace while Dororo continues to build his kingdom. Years later they meet up together on a bridge in a beautiful land. That will be all for today. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.